We have a limited amount of time, and so we want to get started as soon as we can. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Georgetown University and the Al-Walid Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding to our program today. I had some opening comments, but because we have a very limited amount of time, I will skip the comments, which is a first. But if I feel really frustrated, I will give it up and give a talk after they're done for 10 or 15 minutes. But what we plan to do is to have two of the speakers. Each will speak about 7 minutes, so that instead of having 4, then we'll go to the Q&A in which all 4 will then respond. And that will give us a maximum amount of time. Could I ask you ahead of time to ask questions? If you want to give a speech, I will stop it because we have a limited amount of time, and everybody, we want to get as many questions in as we can. Our first speaker today will be Sandoz Assam. She's the first speaker for this delegation that's come from the Muslim Brotherhood and the Freedom and Justice Party. Sandoz is a political activist and senior editor of Ikhwan Web, the Muslim Brotherhood's official English website, and its Twitter account. She's a member of the Freedom and Justice Party's Foreign Relations Committee, holds a BA in English from Ain Shams University in Cairo, and an MA in Mass Communications from AUC. She also serves as a board member of an academic publishing house. Sandoz.
Thank you very much for having us. It's really our pleasure to join you today in the very first official visit of the Freedom and Justice Party here. And we're here to start building bridges of understanding with the United States. We are doing this in several places in the world, but we believe our visit to the United States is probably the most important because we acknowledge the very important role of the United States in the world, and we would like to our relations with the United States to be better than before, and we believe that a democratic Egypt will have positive relations with the United States and will have positive relations with all the democratic world. So, as you know, we are coming from the Freedom and Justice Party with an Islamic background, so you'll find us quoting the Quran a lot. So, at the beginning, this Quranic verse is for us a very important principle and a reference probably for our foreign policy and our relations with the world. Allah says, "O people, we have created you all out of male and a female, and we have made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another, or you may get to know one another." So we are here to get to know each other. It's not just from our side. We would like to get to know you, and we would like you to have a better understanding of us. And we're here to start good and positive relations with the United States. So let me first start with a brief history of Egypt, or modern Egypt, and what has brought us here today. Before the revolution, as you have been all aware, we have been under tremendous oppression and immense violations of human rights by Mubarak's regime, and lack of democracy, and a very suffocating dictatorship that has impacted all Egyptians, both Muslims and Christians, and Egyptians from different segments of society. We've all been victims of such a despotic and dictatorial regime. Egypt has been suffering extreme poverty. Above 30% of Egyptians are under the poverty line due to the corrupt policies of the previous regime and consecutive regimes over the past several decades. We have very high rates of illiteracy. We have seen lots of nepotism and, of course, deeply entrenched corruption almost in all state and non-governmental institutions. Before the revolution, the future was bleak. I personally, I had no hope for a better future under the Mubarak regime. And we have reached the point where we were almost desperate. We have lost all hopes of a better future. For me, for example, I'll tell you just a story of myself, which is, it applies to many Egyptians who suffered lots of oppression under Mubarak's regime. Before the revolution, I was working in business, entrepreneurship, and I traveled a lot. That was part of my job. And my name was registered in the airport on the security check. And that, for me, that was a tremendous violation of my freedom of movement. Whenever I wanted to travel, whenever I decided to travel, I have been stopped arbitrarily by the security police in the airport. They interrogated me, they searched my bags, they confiscated any papers that I had only because I was affiliated to an opposition movement. I found this tremendously unjust, and I reached a point where I was really disappointed, and that was about a month before the revolution. And I told the state security police in the airport who used to interrogate me, I told him, well, I'm tired. Are you gonna do this whenever I travel? Am I going to encounter that throughout my entire life? Whenever I travel, I am intimidated. I'm not sure whether I'm gonna travel or not. I'm not sure whether my belongings will be confiscated or not. And he told me, yes, you will be interrogated all your life as long as your name is registered on this list. I told him, so I should have no hope, or I should have no legal solution to that? And he told me, there's no legal solution. The only solution is for the Mubarak regime to go. And that's not gonna happen soon. And that was just 1 month before the revolution and before what happened in Tunisia. It was in December in 2010. And when he told me that, although I was really desperate, I had slight hope. And the Tunisian revolution, it brought us back that hope. And our revolution, of course, it changed history, and it just brought our hope back. And I became optimistic again that I can pursue my career. At least I have the freedom upon which I can decide on what I want to do. So that was just a brief example, and that happened to hundreds and probably thousands of Egyptian families who have been treated unjustly by the Mubarak regime because of their political opposition to the regime. And then came the revolution and the 4 magical words, الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام. The people want to topple the regime, and we wanted it, and we got it, and Mubarak stepped down. And that's just the beginning. The demands of our revolution have been mainly freedom, dignity, justice, and democracy. And to shift to my party background, these are also the objectives of our party, the Freedom and Justice Party. We are seeking to fulfill the demands of the young people who revolted in Tahrir Square, and these demands are our priorities, and we are committed to achieving that, although it's a huge challenge. It's a very long-term goal, but we're going to do it, and we are going to be up to the aspirations of the Egyptian people and the trust they gave us in 3 consecutive elections. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Abdelmagoud to continue.
Let me just give you a little background on the next speaker. He's a member of the Parliament from the Freedom and Justice Party for Luxor, serves on the Foreign Relations Committee, holds a PhD in Cultural Studies from the University of Pittsburgh, and a BA in English from the University of Asyut. He's an adjunct professor of cultural studies at Metro State University in Minnesota, and has authored several publications on bridging cultural and civilizational gaps. And I forgot to mention, I'm John Esposito, but anyway, in case in the Q&A you need to refer to my name. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for inviting us here. Thank you all for being with us here a little bit over a year now. Millions of people had to go to the streets of Cairo and the rest of Egypt to stand against corruption, dictatorship, and oppression. And in such a meeting, I remember those who sacrificed their lives for us to be able to meet together today. If I may kindly request that we stand up for a moment in commemoration of those who sacrificed their lives in the peaceful revolutions in Egypt. Thank you. The Egyptian revolution, as Egypt itself, was unique in the way it presented itself, in the way it acted against oppression, dictatorship, and corruption, and in the way that it is fulfilling its promises on the roadmap towards democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. The revolution was not against one individual. It was against a system, a regime. الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام. That was the most common word that Egyptians would feel very proud of pronouncing it. I saw babies at the age of 3, 4, and 5 repeat that statements in many different streets of Egypt. It was very telling that a young Egyptian, boy or girl, would stand up and declare that they're free now, that they're willing to work together to build a new country based on the principles of justice, freedom for all. The challenges are enormous. After a system collapses, and that is the unique moment in the Egyptian history, it's very difficult to find the oppressors and the oppressed together. I cannot forget that moment when Khairat al-Shatir was getting out of prison cell. The same time, the interior minister who put him in jail was getting in the same cell. That was an amazing moment. And that is the difficult challenge in Egypt now, is you have the killer and the victim together. And the challenge, the real challenge for us now, is how can we create alternative away from vengeance? How can we create an alternative that brings back the rights of the Egyptians and create a model that is unique? I always have this optimism about creating an Egypt for all, not only for all Egyptians, but for all citizens to come and visit and witness the great history of Egypt. So now, after we as individuals are becoming free, We would like to build and create free institutions. Egyptians are determined not to go back to the old regime by any means, neither in governance nor in attitudes. Egyptians are serious about building a new future for all. Voices will no longer be silenced. I ran as a member of parliament in Luxor. You cannot imagine the difficult dialogues we had with the people in Egypt. The new Egypt was welcoming disagreement, welcoming differences, and willing to chart a new course for the future. There is a need for a value system based on freedom, justice, democracy, and dignity. We have a tradition and a culture that supports strong family ties as basis of a healthy society. Faith, for us, defines this value system, encourages spirituality, resists oppression and extremism. On the economic level, we would like to encourage the private enterprise, promote opportunities that many young Egyptians were not allowed to develop. We would like also Egypt to be part of the global economy. The state needs not to control, but it needs to empower the young Egyptians. We would like to focus on economic partnership. On the political front, we're very much interested and working for, we know that Egypt has a unique place, geography, history. So the stability and the security, not only of Egypt, but of the whole region, depends on what happens in Egypt in the coming years. Free, uninterrupted trade and oil, energy supply, nuclear disarmament, and comprehensive peace are important ingredients of the political platform of Egypt. We have a dream. And the dream is that all Egyptians have access to clean water, food, schools, and hospitals. We have a dream that Egyptians will not be fearful anymore of speaking truth to power. We would like not to have fear of any more torture for political opposition, for innocent human beings, just because they have a different perspective. We have a dream of creating a civic society that is vibrant and strong. The stronger the society is better for everyone. We need to create a balance between the strength of the society and the strength of the government. The moment the government is stronger than the society, it can lead to oppression. We would like the people of Egypt to have the power in their hands. We would like to make, because of living for so many years under oppression, it created a culture of oppression. And we have to replace this culture of oppression with the culture of democracy and freedom. We have a dream that visitors to Egypt can come safely to see our ancient civilization. And we're adding another monument in Egypt. It's called Tahrir Square. Please, anytime you visit Egypt, make sure you stop and see Tahrir Square. We would like you to be able and others to walk in the shadow of the pyramids, whisper a prayer in the Virgin Mary Church, which is across the street from Amr ibn al-As Mosque. This is the Egypt we're having a dream for. We have a dream that Egyptians, as will others, will be able to sail down the Nile and feel connected with 7,000 years of human genius and creativity. That is the dream we have. In brief, we have a dream that is not limited to Egypt, but that's open to the whole world, where we can honor human dignity and respect our cultural differences that we consider as indispensable conditions for world peace. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Esposito, for having us.
Okay, to just do a brief introduction of two of the other people who will be joining in responding to questions. Hussein Al-Qazzaz is a businessman and advisor to the Muslim Brotherhood and the Freedom and Justice Party on issues of national development, economic and business development, and organizational performance. He has a PhD in organizational behavior and business administration from Ohio State, was formerly a professor at Alexandria. Khaled Al-Qazzaz is coordinator of foreign relations at the Freedom and Justice Party. He's a mechanical engineer by training, serves as an education consultant and vice chairman of a private and international chain in Cairo. He's a PhD candidate at Walden University. I would like to begin the questioning with just one observation, and that is in the aftermath of the uprising, as we have seen in Egypt, as we also have seen in Tunisia. Though Islamists did not initiate the uprisings, they've emerged as a leading political force in elections. And we see that with the FJP and its 47% of the vote, plus the vote that went to the Salafis. But the question is whether that will demonstrate a willingness to pursue and build a democratic, pluralistic political system and effectively address pressing economic issues. What role, for example, will religion play in Egypt's government and its institutions? What impact will that have on citizenship, on non-Muslims, on women's rights, and relations with the EU and the US? Those of you who are familiar with the platform of the FJP, which is on the internet, will see some of that addressed. But then the question is, how is that understood and how is that playing out today? So why don't we begin with the questions, and I'll try to remember to go back and forth. We'll start here.
Hello, my name is Mina, and I have a couple of questions. First,
one question.
Oh.
Look at the line. You can only have one question.
Okay, I will.
We're Catholic, but you can't do Trinity. You can't do 3 questions in one.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so very quickly, I will start with Dr. Abmagoud. I will quote you in a conference in Luxor when you said that in August 2011, you said the United States and Israel are the biggest losers of the Arab Spring. I want you to explain to me more about this. And also in November 11, when you used the same verse that Gamal Abdel Nasser used against the United States, when you said that we have, if the United States didn't like the result of the elections, we have 2 seas. We have the Red Sea and we have the Mediterranean Sea. They can drink from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay.
It was a run-on sentence.
The first part of the question concerning...
Yes, the first quotation in your video on YouTube, August 2000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The biggest losers. Yes. There is no doubt in the minds of many Egyptians, and in fact that statement was said by ex-President George Bush himself, that the United States administration supported dictatorship in the Arab world for the past 60 years. So to support dictatorship was a big mistake on the side of the American administration. And what happened in the Arab world is a shift towards the future, and the United States administration really has to change its policy in relationship to the Arab world and has to be working with the people of Egypt, people of Tunisia, people of Libya and Yemen and other places as well, so that it does not really, the anti-American sentiment is very high. And we cannot forget the Iraq war and the damage that happened to the Iraqis because of the wrong decision, oil versus democracy. So these are true realities in the Arab world. And I think in the coming years, if we succeed in building relationships based on freedom and justice for all, respecting our cultural differences and willing to work together in common platform, we'll be able to create. And that is very true that Egypt now is not Egypt of the president. Egypt is of the Egyptian people, as any country should not accept any interference from any outside country in its political system and in the choices of its own people. Thank you.
And then there was the second part, which had to do with the Red Sea and
Yeah, this is the second part. It was a question that was during the political campaign. How about people were asking, but still coming out of Mubarak's area, that what about if the United States does not like the election results? I said, the United States can do whatever it wants. It is an Egyptian decision. And if the United States like it, we're happy with it. If the United States doesn't like it, we have a saying in Egypt that you can drink from the Red Sea or drink from the White Sea. We have two seas, we have to make use of them. Thank you.
Yes, next.
Egyptian Association for Change.
Oh, wait. I don't know if your mic is on. Go ahead. Yeah.
My name is Amin Mahmoud. I'm an Egyptian activist with the Egyptian Association for Change. I would like to ask you, I was disappointed with your statement, both statements, and I would like to ask you that the Constitution cannot be written by the majority. You're doing what Mubarak used to do. Majority rule and do everything they want. You now, everybody withdraw from the committee, and they shouldn't choose people from the parliament to write the Constitution of Egypt.
Okay. So,
Thank you for asking this question. It is a valid question, and it's very important for you to know that Freedom and Justice Party represents more than 47%, and in spite of this, we became underrepresented in the Constitutional Committee. The SCAF that the referendum that was took is the People Assembly and the Shura Council will choose those who would write the Constitution. And the Freedom and Justice Party insisted to be as inclusive as possible, included liberals, secularists, Coptics, people of Al-Azhar. And what is interesting about the committee writing the Constitution, it is criticized by both extremes. One extreme from Al-Azhar saying that we're underrepresented, and then the secular liberal party is saying we're underrepresented. So that can tell you exactly that the committee is trying really to be in the middle and invite everyone. And now there is this addition, interesting addition to the Constitution Writing Committee, is there will be technical committees that will invite anyone. The Constitution belongs to the Egyptians, and all Egyptian voices have to be heard and have to be included. And I would like this fine. They have to be heard, and in fact, we're having representatives from Egyptian diaspora, Egyptians living outside of Egypt, and this is the first time of its history that we have representatives from Emirates. So writing the Constitution is open for everyone. We welcome every voice, and we will have a Constitution that Egyptians will be proud of it.
would any of the other panelists like to address this? Otherwise, I'll go to the next question.
I'll just add briefly two quick points. One is the process itself of the election of selecting the assembly was a democratic process in the first place. Since the referendum, over 70% of Egyptians voted for the parliament to choose the Constituent Assembly. So this was democratically decided. The parliament itself voted also on the procedure to select the Constituent Assembly, and this was also an over a 70% vote within the parliament. And finally, after the FGP party proposed and the lists came out, the outcome actually was voted on by 84% within the parliament, which means that it's not only FGP, not also even if you add the Noor Salafi party, it's actually an overwhelming majority on it. It's a political move, unfortunately, but at the end of the day, we're still open to suggestions and ideas, and we want our constitution to be inclusive. And at the end of the day, basically, Egyptians will vote on everything on the constitution in a general referendum. Thank you.
Yeah. Next question.
Thanks for coming. My name is Eric Traeger. I'm at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. My question is about your trip here. You were scheduled yesterday to speak at the Muslim Public Affairs Committee. It was actually the only Muslim organization on your agenda. They said that you canceled because you insisted on seeing a list of the attendees and having your headquarters vet them. They put this out in a public email. Can you comment on that? Who were you afraid might show up to that event? Why did you insist on vetting the list of attendees at this event? Thank you.
This was actually just simply a miscommunication logistic issue. We were communicated, and I'm being extremely frank, by friends here from within the Muslim community, actually to invite us on a social event. And we have, since the past few weeks, we were invited by, the main invitation is by the Carnegie Endowment for Peace Conference, which is scheduled tomorrow, and the invitation today for Georgetown University. And since the Georgetown announced we've received so many requests to meet throughout this week.